My voice, my story, my journey. It is SA Awareness and Prevention Month, and I'm here to tell you one of my stories. So lock in for the ride. So my encounter with SA was over a period of time when I was little, also known as CSA, childhood sex assault or abuse. And this is how it happened. So I was born in Bronx, New York. That's a whole thing, right? My mother was a single parent. She had to do what she had to do. So I was with my grandmother a lot, but grandma worked and everything. And so my madrina, godmother at that time, who was the building's, I forget how to say it, but you know, the landlord, the one in charge of everything, super, whatever, super. And so she was the one I stayed with. That was my godmother. So she watched me, you know, during the day until grandma got off of work. She had a daughter, and her daughter had a husband. And so the husband would help around the property and the building. Thanks for dealing with the stimming, y'all. Woo, see, you tell your story, boy, you start, we're going to breathe real quick. And so the son, the husband, son-in-law, would help with things around the building. Now, I ran away from this for so many reasons, but especially when I got older and I would go through like crisis therapy or whatever, and they'd be like, let's talk about your childhood. I'm like, nope, I don't want to deal with that can of beans because of reasons that happened with it. Between my mom and the toxicity and not wanting to deal with it, you know? And so when I did EMDR therapy, this is before I started what I consider my official healing journey, even though many of you out there have validated the fact that I started long before I believe. But when I started and I did EMDR therapy, and that's when you get a touchstone memory, for those of you who have done it, it didn't work for me too much after that, but that touchstone memory was 18 months. 18 months is the first time this man laid his hands on me. May have just been sitting on his lap, don't remember, but that's the touchstone. What I do know is from that point until I was 6 years old, it was a continuous abuse situation. And when I was 4 is when the penetration started, the grape started. Now, you think to yourself, damn, that's a long time, Crystal. How did nobody notice? I ask myself that question every day. You know why? Because they're Puerto Rican and Catholic, and they just want to turn the other cheek, and they don't want to believe anything. And let me tell you how my mother ran from it. I went to the bathroom at said time of 4 years old, and I had blood coming out. So I come out, say, Mom, I had blood in my pee. My cute little self. And she was like, what? Did you flush already? I said, yeah. Mind you, my mother is in the medical field. And y'all know already it's going to be 7 years I walked, and this is a lot of the reason why. And she goes, well, if that happens again, make sure you let me see it. To me, I look back and like, hold on a second. Isn't it odd for your 4-year-old to have blood coming out of their vagina? And you're going to wait for next time? The reason it stopped was because we moved from there. I wholeheartedly believe that if that was a place we would have stayed in, that would have continued. And all those years that this was happening, I didn't know. I was a kid. I mean, I was the cutest little chubby little kid with curly hair, just running around, being my cute self. And then eventually, I was about 12-ish. My mother, we had moved to Florida, and she watched Oprah all the time. And so there was an episode on Oprah, and I want to say she had Dr. Phil on there at that time. This is back in like the mid-90s, you know? And I caught it while I was going to get a snack, and they were talking about a situation, this family dealing with this situation where the father was raping the daughter, the stepfather was raping the daughter, and the mother was taking the stepfather's side. But as I listened to what exactly he was doing to the stepdaughter, I was like, that happened to me. So I tell my mother, Not directly. She overheard me on the phone with my best friend, telling my best friend the story. And then she came and she says, let's get you a bigger room. So, we got a new house. That was before the new house. Let's put you in the other room that's the bigger room. Let's decorate it. Oh, we did the whole thing. Sun, moon, and stars with the yellow, did the bathroom, all new bedroom set, everything. Because my mother, it was and probably is still the queen of, I will give you the world because I'm narcissistic and you will owe me your soul for the rest of your life and your firstborn if I'm lucky. For those of us who know what those types of narcissistic covert parents are. And as a family who is somewhat close, mind you, having many siblings, she was so ashamed that she didn't want me to tell anybody. She didn't put me in therapy. She didn't go get me help. And I remember thinking to myself, how could she tell my aunts and them not care? So thinking that all the other people in my family didn't care. So one day, a few years later, when I was about 14, hanging out with one of my aunts, went to the outlet mall, we're sitting in the cafeteria, and I don't remember the situation, but if you're in Florida back at that time, we're looking at like 2000, late 90s, early 2000s, there was a girl that went missing. And there was a pedophile who lived in the neighborhood. And after all of this search and looking, they ended up finding her holding her teddy bear in trigger warning, in a bag underneath this man's porch, where they looked twice. And he was able to get on a train and get out of this country. And you know what? Maybe I will look it up, because if you're in Florida, you may remember it. But my aunt and I were talking about it at that time. Like how, And I said, I feel so bad because, that little girl didn't know. I remember when that was happening. And my aunt looked at me. She was like, what do you mean? And I was like, oh, you didn't know? And she's like, no, what? And I told her, I was like, this is what was happening to me. This is what he was doing. And she's like, does your mom know? I said, yeah, mom knew since 3 years ago. Like, why do you think I got a better room? And eventually we got a bigger house, because that's how she compensated for it. That's when I realized that she was ashamed of the trauma and rape and SA that I went through as a child, that instead of getting me help, instead of telling other people, she held it within her side, probably will take it to her grave if it wasn't for me talking about it. And it ain't no shutting me up, because he did what he did and she did what she did, and I feel how I feel. So when I tell you that I know I'm not the only one, I know I'm not. And my hope is that this story gets to you. I'm hoping that those who are able to hear this story, if you're still listening, to know this is why it's important to listen to your children. And this is why it's important to make sure you know what's happening in your backyard. Because I fight for our youth. And I would give my life if it meant that no other children would have to go through this. Willingly, I would give my life. Because it's not easy. But I am grateful that I'm here. And I'm grateful that I can share this story for people to hear, to know. You're not alone. We're in it together. And I love you.